Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to move into our first lesson of Module 12, the Enlightenment, and that is the scientific revolution. This is a fairly large and important lesson, so I'm going to break it up into two parts, A and B. Today we're going to cover Module 12, Lesson 1, Part A. In this, what we're going to cover are things like Copernicus and Galileo, with a few others included. Our next lesson will move into some other scientific changes and discoveries that are really going to inspire more of the Enlightenment. As we talked about already in our introduction, the Enlightenment is a period of time which is going to bring greater amount of knowledge to a greater amount of people. What you guys did previously was define the word enlighten. And that is to impart knowledge, to instruct, to teach, but also to learn, to gather information. So to be enlightened is to be a smarter, more intellectual, a stronger thinking person. But how do we get to that point? How do we go from a population of majority peasants and serfs living under the authority of others to begin asking questions, to begin enlightening our minds and gathering information? How do we begin that process? Today we're going to start that. As we talked about, we are going to be in the scientific revolution. It's going to run from about 1450-ish to 1700, and these dates aren't set in stone, just general. As you can see, this is Module 12, the Enlightenment, Lesson 1, the Scientific Revolution, and it covers pages 480 to 487 in your book. Online, it's in Module 12, Lesson 1. The objectives that we want to make sure that we cover are to be able to explain how new discoveries in astronomy are going to change the way people view the universe. And this isn't a metaphorical statement here, where we say view the universe. This is a literal sense. The way that our brains operated for thousands of years was to understand one model of the universe. To deviate from that was heresy and could wind you up in pretty hot water, and that's literal too. So it is going to literally change the way that our brains function and understand what the universe looks like. That's a revolutionary change. We also want to be able to analyze the contributions that Copernicus, Tycho Brahe, Johannes Kepler, and Galileo are going to make to the scientific revolution. Lastly, if we can explain how science led to enlightenment, we'll be well on our way. Some questions we should be able to answer by the end of this is: how did discoveries in science lead to a new way of thinking for Europeans? Why was Copernicus' theory seen as radical? And why was Galileo threatened with death for his discoveries? Let's get into it. First, as I talked about in my previous lesson, in order to understand where we are, we want to look back a little bit at where we've been. So what makes the scientific revolution a thing? What gave power to it? First was the Renaissance. You guys have learned about this probably in 6th or 7th grade. The Renaissance was a rebirth. This is going to inspire curiosity among the masses, and this mainly stems from art. And things like the way that we do that we write plays and we act out life in art form, but also in music and in paintings and in sculptures. And the way that we then depict life in art is really going to inspire curiosity among the masses of people, just the general people, not the rich, not the powerful, them too. But this is special because it inspires the poor, the general masses. And once their minds are awakened, it has incredible power. From there, that curiosity leads us to a period of exploration. We want to go out and explore, discover more. These kinds of things are going to take us places, right? In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Exploration is going to be our next step, and that leads us to things like discovery. By broadening their horizons, Europeans are going to be curious about the world outside, explore to find answers to that curiosity, and during that exploration, they are going to come across new discoveries. But what kind of things are we going to discover? We are going to discover that our old, strongly held beliefs, like the Earth being in the center of the universe as an immovable object, keep that in mind, immovable. It stays where it is. That's going to be important for something I mentioned down the road. But we're going to take these widely held and strongly held beliefs, and men are going to challenge these ideas using new tools to discover new things. So new science is going to challenge the old ways of thinking. And what's going to help then get those ideas out to the world? Because I can sit here in my office and I can think up something amazing and I can, change an entire model of the universe. But if I don't share that with anybody or even have the power or the technology to share those ideas with anybody, what good is that idea? So new technology is going to be the final piece that really makes the scientific revolution possible. And the main piece of technology is going to come from a man by the name of Johann Gutenberg, who I like to call Goody Goot. Johann Gutenberg is known for commonly and incorrectly inventing the printing press. He doesn't necessarily invent the printing press. That had already existed. But he is going to create a new way of operating the printing press. And this is very, very important. The printing press used to be operated. You would take a wood block and you would carve into an entire wood block backwards, by the way, and you would emboss it out, which is incredibly difficult. And that entire block then would have a piece of parchment or something laid over top, ink, and then pressed. The problem is, after that page is printed, that entire block is basically unusable. Gutenberg came up with a beautiful idea to say, instead of carving out an entire block with words, why don't we carve out tiny little pieces of block with letters? So let's carve out 100 A's and 100 B's and 100 C's. Obviously a different language for them, so different letters and things like that. But I hope you understand the example, because then I can take those little pieces of letters and move them around. Piece of paper on, ink, press, page printed. Now I don't throw away all of those other wood blocks or little tiny wood letter pieces. I can reuse them by moving them around to make new words and new sentences. So what Johann Goody Goot is going to be really responsible for is movable type. And this is going to make the spread of ideas incredibly, incredibly efficient, and is going to get new ideas out to everyday people that in the past would never have had that opportunity. So before the scientific revolution, people are going to refer to things like the Bible, right? The clergy and the church to get their answers. And if you question it, you're questioning God. How dare you? And the people in charge, the people in positions of authority of the church, when you question what they tell you, they take it as you not just questioning them, but questioning the creator of the entire universe. And you are a danger. For that purpose, we didn't question things. People were afraid to question things. People were afraid to bring up new ideas. And on top of that, we looked to the scholars. And here was another thing that led most people to believe that they didn't have the power to come up with new ideas and new theories. Because just as if you bring up a question to the church, you must be questioning God, how dare you? If you bring up a new idea that contradicts something that comes from men like Socrates or Plato, Aristotle, Ptolemy, many of these amazing thinkers, then others would look at you and say, you think you're smarter than Plato? Wow, you got a big head, man. Huge ego. Two of these guys are going to give us a really important theory, and one that is going to hold for thousands of years. And that is the belief that the earth is an immovable object. It stays where it is. It is set there, and it does not move. And who was it placed there by? It was placed there by God. So these ideas from the scholars in the church, They work hand in hand, which makes them extra powerful and even harder to challenge and to change. This theory that was held for thousands of years comes to be known as the geocentric theory. Geo meaning Earth, centric meaning centered. We could break this down to call it the Earth-centered theory. It's also often known as the Ptolemaic model. Ptolemy was a Roman mathematician and scholar who was going to use the ideas of Aristotle and ancient Greek to come up with what's known and set in stone, along with the church, the geocentric theory. So what happens then during the late 1400s that are going to change things? Well, this is where we talked about the age of exploration. Europeans are going to start going all over the world. And they had been doing that for some time, but now they're going to be going deeper and deeper into new areas. So as we know, in 1492, we're going to discover, or rediscover, I suppose, the Americas. During this time, Europeans are going to come around Africa and begin further trade, and even make some headway into getting into the mainland heart of Africa. And on top of that, they are going to begin visiting in greater quantity and frequency Asia through things like the Silk Road and other water trade routes. Here, during this exploration, they're going to discover all sorts of new things. New scientific discoveries are made. Things like new plants, new foods that we can bring back to Europe or elsewhere and plant them in our own soil. We're going to discover new animals that we've never seen before. And on top of that, new peoples that we don't understand, that we're going to have peace with and oftentimes war with, but again, a good exchange of ideas. So during this time, we are going to discover a ton of new stuff. And from those new discoveries, necessity is the mother of invention. And when we have so many new ideas and new knowledge, well, it is a necessity for us to share that. And we create new things to do it. And this is where your man Johann Gutenberg in Germany is going to create what's known as movable type to work with the printing press, so our ideas can spread further and faster. And now it's not just one man that has an idea, but now it can be a village that shares it, a country that understands it, and hopefully maybe even a continent that can embrace it. And all of these things are due to an age known as the Renaissance, the rebirth, building or bringing back that curiosity of the human mind. The first challenge that we're going to see is going to come in the world of astronomy. And that is viewing the stars, viewing the celestial skies, viewing the heavenly bodies that float above us. As we discussed, this is the previous model. What is this called? You can yell it out at home. Look at what we're seeing here. The Earth is in the center, and as we talked about, Earth is geo, center is centric. This comes to be known as the geocentric theory. But what's wrong about this model? We've mentioned it several times, and as we know today, the problem is that the Earth is in the center. We know today that that is not correct. But for longer than we have believed it's incorrect, human beings on Earth have believed that this model is correct. Think about that for a second. We've only known for a fact that we revolve around the sun, not the other way around, for about 600 years. But they believed in the geocentric theory for thousands. Try to change that idea. Think about something that we as human beings across the world have held true for thousands of years. And then tomorrow I come into class and tell you it's all wrong. How hard would it be for you to believe me? To take on that idea? So to change the way that we have been taught to think is really, really hard. So what did they then come up with instead? The new model that is going to be proposed is now a sun-centered model. The sun is in the middle. Now, as we look at this, many of you may say, yeah, but even this is wrong. fixed stars, circular orbits. You're correct. But this is the first step. Think about when you get a new puzzle. When you take out that one piece, you place it in the center and say, I'm going to build out from here. You don't place that one piece down and say, whoa, this is not correct at all. Because look at everything around it is not put together yet. That one piece is a building block. And that's what we're seeing here. Even though there are so many other things wrong with the Copernican universe, what we come to call the heliocentric theory, heliocenter, or helio means sun, centric is center, sun-centered. Even though there are many things wrong with this model, it is a stepping stone. It is the first piece of the puzzle. And who gives us this new model that questions the old authority, questions the old ideas? This may have given it away. The Copernican universe is brought to us by a man by the name of Nicholas Copernicus. He's a Polish astronomer with a giant chin, but a very, very brilliant astronomer. And he also understood the ways of the world in his time. And he also understood the strength of the church. Nicholas Copernicus is going to come up with this idea long before he even publishes it. For more than 25 years, Nicholas Copernicus is going to observe the movements of planets, moons, and the sun. From these observations, again, observations, understand what that word means. He's just looking at things. From those observations, he gives us the the heliocentric theory. No longer is the Earth in the middle. It is not immovable. It moves. And that is a revolutionary idea. The church is going to go crazy. How dare you say that the Earth is not strong in the center? Knowing that the church would be really angry about Copernicus stating that the Earth and other planets revolve around the sun. He is going to delay the publishing of his book until 1543, on his deathbed. He knew the church would be angry, and in fact, he discovered this years earlier. Imagine that. Imagine you discover something that we as human beings have either never thought of or have totally said that is not possible. Martians. And let's say a Martian lands in your backyard tomorrow, but you know if you reveal it to anybody, the whole world will descend on you. The American government and military will come and apprehend that Martian, maybe even detain you, take your family to prison so you don't tell anybody about it. Who knows? So you keep that Martian in your basement or in your house living amongst you for years. That would be crazy. He holds on to this idea for years. It is earth-shattering. Like, talk about a huge secret to keep from people. But he holds on to it until he's on his deathbed. He discovered this decades earlier. Copernicus waits until 1543 to publish his findings in his book, as he dies, on the revolutions of celestial spheres. Now, most of the population in Europe can't read. So when he publishes this book, he's not publishing it so that the whole world can know. He's publishing it so that other scientists, others that are in his field, can pick up his work where he left off and bring it more evidence. And as we'll see, one star dies, another star is born. As Copernicus passes, another man will be born just a few years later. A Danish astronomer by the name of Tycho Brahe. Tycho Brahe is born into an incredibly wealthy family, and he is super, super, super intelligent. He's one of those guys, and I'm sure many of you have friends like this, where you study for a test all night long, and you think you're ready, and then you go in and you take that test, and you think you nailed it, and you get a B. And your friend sitting next to you didn't study at all last night. He didn't come in for the test nervous. Takes it, aces the test. And you're sitting there going, how did you ace this? You didn't even study. That's Tycho Brahe. Tycho Brahe was just so naturally intelligent. But his love was the sky. His love was knowledge. And he's going to be an incredible astronomer. But Tycho Brahe has a pretty cool history. He's a brilliant mathematician and an avid partier. Tycho Brahe is going to go down being known not only for his brilliance, but for how he really didn't exercise that brilliance in a serious manner, but more in an attitude of life is beautiful and I'm super smart. Let's enjoy this. Let's have a good time. He would have huge parties at his castles. He was kind of the socialite of the time. Every prince and every king and queen, every consort, whoever, they wanted to have Tycho Brahe at their castle, at their estate, at their chateau to teach their children, but then to have fun with them at night and drink up and have fun at a banquet or things like that. Tycho Brahe is kind of a crazy guy too. He actually lost his nose after being insulted at the age of 20 by his own cousin. While studying at university, there was a contest of sorts. Who can come up with the most difficult mathematical equation that only you could solve and nobody else could? Because if somebody else could solve your equation, well, then it wasn't that hard. Again, Tycho Brahe, being the brilliant man he was, he, in a matter of a short period of time compared to his fellow students, came up with a great, super strong mathematical equation. His own cousin that was there at the university couldn't solve it. He was angry. He was frustrated. He came up to Tycho Brahe at a party, nonetheless, after Tycho Brahe had been having fun, and insults him. Today we have yo mama jokes, and that's, I won't stand for that. You make fun of my mama, you're going down. We're going to have some fighting words. The mama jokes of the 1500s were things like, hey, Tycho, your mathematical equation sucks. And at that, Tycho Brahe drops his drink, puts on his dueling gloves, looks at his own cousin and says, outside. So the two fall outside of this party. They're in the cobblestone street. It's raining. It's a little bit of wet snow on the ground. Tycho Brahe is obviously a bit inebriated. He's been partying and having fun all night. But he's not going to let anybody question his intellectual abilities. He draws his sword and begins to fight with his own cousin. During the sword duel, Tycho Brahe's back foot slipped as he made a lunge. His head falls towards the ground, and on that, his cousin is going to take a swipe and cleanly cut his nose right off his face. From that point forward, Tycho Brahe is always going to have some form of prosthetic nose, a wood nose, a gold nose, a bronze nose, for all different occasions. He was super rich and held many parties at his castle. He'd have people from all over Europe come and dine. They'd talk about amazing things, astronomy, new discoveries in science and around the world. He had a dwarf named Jep that would act as jester at his parties. They'd toss him around, he'd carry him on his shoulder and drink with them. Jep was one of his good buddies. He even trained an elk, a pet elk, to act as emissary. Tycho Brahe was incredibly popular. People from all over, rich people from all over Europe, wanted to have Tycho Brahe in their home to teach them, but also their children. Kind of like just, a teacher that would come to your house and just teach you. But sometimes Tycho Brahe, as he got older especially, he wanted to spend more time with his friends and just partying. So he would say, sure, I would come and accept money from you. And then he would send his elk instead. Much to the dismay of many. In fact, the elk is going to die. A very sad story. One night, Tycho Brahe and his buddies were having a good time. They were getting pretty inebriated. And so was his elk. They put a trough around his neck and let him drink a bunch of beer. Then they walked him up the castle stairs to do an experiment and see if these elks could go downstairs. And they found that the elk could not. So they try and get behind the elk and push the elk, nudge the elk, get the elk to start walking down the stairs. 3 guys get behind, 4 guys, 5, trying to push this up. Finally, the elk budges and falls all the way down the stone staircase of Tycho Brahe's castle. And that was the end of Tycho Brahe's elk. Unfortunately, Tycho Brahe is going to die as a young man in 1601. He was at a banquet, and at the time, these banquets would often last 8 hours and more. It would have round and course of meal and drink, and it was very impolite, particularly as a guest, to excuse yourself. And we know that Tycho Brahe liked to drink, so he was drinking a lot. He had to go. He had to go to the bathroom, but he didn't. He said, "I'm going to be polite. I'm going to be a nice guy." And he doesn't. A few days later, Tycho Brahe is going to be infected, and after that, Tycho Brahe is going to die. Very suspicious circumstances, some would say. But he is going to give us a lot of info that are going to help prove the heliocentric theory. You see, because Copernicus proposed the idea and he had a lot of his own observations to back it up. But what you're going to find as you grow older is that when you come up with an idea, you need others to verify it, to give it credence and power and strength. That is what Tycho Brahe does for the heliocentric theory. His own epitaph is going to say that he lived like a sage and died like a fool. He wrote that for himself, and it stands on his tombstone. Tycho Brahe even had a sense of humor. But was this death something more sinister? Did he die as a young man with a brilliant mind because others were maybe after his knowledge? Was it something more sinister like murder? But who? Who would want to do such a thing? Who would be after Tycho Brahe, this man that just liked to have fun? He was jolly. He was jovial. Who would do so? Oh my God, who is that? Satan? No. Although this man is scary looking and also sinister looking, this is not Satan. This is Tycho Brahe's assistant, Johannes Kepler, and actually the man that many of you may have heard of before. Johannes Kepler is also a brilliant, brilliant mathematician and astronomer. He is going to work with Tycho Brahe, but as you can see in his face, a much more serious character than our guy Brahe. It can be suspected that maybe Johannes Kepler is going to be annoyed with Tycho Brahe, partying all the time, not focusing on his work. And Kepler wanted to get things done. So for a long time, it has been speculated that perhaps Johannes Kepler, the assistant, the jealous assistant that wanted fame and glory, took out his own mentor, Tycho Brahe. But let's put that aside. You can research that on your own. Kepler was Brahe's assistant, and what Kepler is going to give us is take all of the ideas and all the data that Brahe is going to produce and turn it into something that is very, very important to helping prove the heliocentric theory, but also raising more questions. The laws that he's going to put forth are going to state that planets move in elliptical orbits. Remember the model I showed you before of Copernicus? The sun is in the center, that's correct, but it's only one piece. We saw circular orbits. We're putting more pieces of the puzzle together. Tycho Brahe was a fantastic astronomer and incredibly brilliant. And again, he worked very diligently to get his data. He never had a telescope, it hadn't been invented yet, but using his own naked eye, he would chart every single star in the sky. He would map it out. Tonight it's here. Tomorrow they're there. And the next night, and the next night, and the next night. This is years, decades of data, tedious data being taken. And before we talk about Tycho Brahe, we have this theory, the Copernicus theory. He gave us as heliocentric, but they move in circular orbits. But again, this is one piece of the puzzle. What now, the new pieces of the puzzle that are being put into place come from Brahe and Kepler. And they're going to say this model is wrong. The sun being in the center, that's good. But we need something different. So Brahe and his sinister looking assistant Kepler are going to give us a different model. They're going to modify it. We still see heliocentric, but now our planets out in orbit look a little bit different. They move in these ovals. They move in ellipses. And this comes to be known as Kepler's laws of planetary motion. But what they do is they provide new questions for us. How are they going in this oval? When they fly out to the right or the left, why don't they keep going? What pulls them back? So one new answer leads us to a new question. We then get the invention of the telescope. In 1608, a man by the name of Hans Lippershey, a Dutch eyeglass maker, is going to apply for a patent for the first telescope, weeks before another inventor. We've seen stuff like this throughout history. It's pretty amazing. The truth is, he saw two kids playing with lenses in his shop, exclaiming that they could see a far-off weather vane when looking through two different size lenses. This piques an idea in his mind that sparks a light bulb to go off. He's going to make a substantial amount of money by selling this new invention of his to the Dutch government, and they used it for military use. They were able to see off the coast, looking towards England, any ships approaching their harbors. But that really has nothing to do with us right now. The man that's going to take this and use it for scientific purposes is a man by the name of Galileo Galilei. In 1609, a year after the invention, Galileo is going to hear of this instrument. He begins using his more powerful telescope that he himself invented, or I guess reinvented. But what is he going to use it for? Galileo is going to use his new telescope, more powerful telescope, to view some things in our universe that had never been seen before. Imagine being the first person to see that there are spots on the sun, and you're going, what the heck is that? Or that our moon has craters. It's not just this giant, shiny, often metallic-looking celestial body that we can't reach out to and touch. We can only use our brain, our eyes. But now we can see further, and we see these craters in the moon. He is going to discover so many amazing things using this simple tool, his more powerful telescope. He discovers that Jupiter has 4 moons, the sun has dark spots, our moon has craters, and all those stars in the sky are beautiful tonight. To be able to see further and clearer than others is an amazing thing. Now, Galileo obviously wants to tell the world about his findings. So what do when you want to tell the world? You publish a book. Galileo is going to publish a book by the name of Starry Messenger. Now, obviously, this challenges the widely held belief that the Earth is in the center, geocentric theory, the church's theory, the scholars' theory, the kings and queens' theory. Galileo says, you're all wrong. How do you think that they are going to react to that? They are not going to be happy. They are not going to embrace it. They are going to push back, and I don't care who you are or how respected you are, we will shut you up. Obviously, when the Pope hears of this, Galileo did what? How could he possibly? Galileo's an Italian, right down the road from the church. How could he be saying these things? So the church immediately says to Galileo, you stop writing books, or you're going to be in a world of trouble. Galileo says, yeah, all right, books, I didn't even want to do that first one, so that's cool. No more books. But guess what he does? He publishes another book. I think you can see what's coming here. Obviously, the Pope is not going to be excited about this. How could he possibly? We just told him. Does he not understand? Because of this, the church, the Roman Catholic Church, is going to strongly suggest that Galileo visit them in Rome. And they're going to put him on trial. The Inquisition in Rome is going to put him on trial. This makes the church very angry. He's summoned to Rome for his crimes. In front of the Pope, and under the threat of torture, Galileo is going to be forced to recant, which means take back what he said before. In trial, Galileo finally says this: to avoid torture, to avoid death, to avoid lifelong imprisonment, he goes against his own beliefs to save his life. And some may say that that's cowardly. To Galileo, that meant that he could discover more stuff, that he could keep working, that he could keep proving those in power wrong. So he tried to live to fight another day. And he says this: with sincere heart and unpretended faith, I abjure, curse, and detest the aforesaid errors and heresies, and also every other error contrary to the Holy Church. And I swear that in the future I will never again say or assert anything that might cause a similar suspicion towards me. Totally recanted. Totally the opposite of what he published in his books. But don't think that Galileo had changed his mind. It's said that as Galileo turned to leave the court, he muttered under his breath, "All the same, it moves." What is he talking about here? Because remember, what is the trial about? The trial is about geo versus heliocentric theories. The geo theory, the church's theory, kings and queens and scholars, geocentric, earth in the center, immovable object. Heliocentric, sun-centered, which means the earth moves. We move. So as he leaves, he says, all the same, it doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter if you torture me or put me under house arrest. It doesn't matter, because all the same, it moves. The earth moves. The geocentric theory is wrong. The church is wrong. The kings and queens are wrong. The scholars are wrong. It moves. From this, the Pope is going to commute Galileo's sentence for life imprisonment to life house arrest. Galileo will never be free again. He's going to be imprisoned under house arrest at a villa outside of Rome. For nearly 10 years, he's going to live under house arrest before his death in 1642. Guess when the Catholic Church is going to officially admit that they were wrong and Galileo was right? 50 years later, 1692, 100 years, 200 years, 350 years after the death of Galileo. In 1992, the church will officially put forth an edict that says that Galileo was correct. We had already landed on the moon. So thank you for letting us know that Galileo is correct. So anyways, that's the beginning. That's the start. These are the big questions. The first major challenge in the world of science that is going to spark revolutionary ideas that will get us into the Enlightenment. That's it for this lesson. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to email myself or any of your own teachers. Don't forget that the notes are attached to the post, as well as this PowerPoint, which you can download and then kind of go through at your own pace if you would like. Take care, guys.